In the first lecture on cell, the unit of life, we talked about the cell, the definition of cell, as also the cell theory. Today we will proceed to see the types of cells. Now, a little recap from whatever we learned earlier. Cell is the basic unit of life, which was discovered Anton von Leeuwenhoek in living organisms, but otherwise the term was coined by Robert Hooke. The cell theory, it was mainly given forward by Matthias Schilden and Theodor Schwann. Also, Virchow worked on it, which states that all living organisms are made up of cell and their products. All cells arise from pre-existing cells. That last statement, the second statement, was given by Virchow. And now to classify cells. Organisms, they are all living organisms. They are made up of cells. The cells which can be either prokaryotic or eukaryotic. Prokaryotic, whenever an organism is made up of prokaryotic type of cell, then it has to be understood that they will always be unicellular. That means the single cell itself will make the organism. The body of the organism is just the cell. And in case of eukaryotic cell structure, the eukaryotic cellular structure, the organism may be unicellular, single cell making up the organism, but most of the cases, many of the eukaryotic cells, they will get together to form a multicellular structure. So here we can see eukaryotes can be single-celled or they can be multicellular. Now, single-celled, like the microorganisms that you see, protozoa, amoeba, those are few examples. Prokaryotes, some examples are bacteria. Multicellular organisms can either be plants or animals that we see around us. Now the prokaryotic cells, just to give an idea, we have some images here. These are prokaryotic cellular structures. Now here you might be confused. Here so many cells, so will it not be a multicellular structure? No, this is not a multicellular structure, just that some prokaryotic cells, they cling to each other, they attach to each other, surrounded by a coating. Surrounded by coating, they live in colonies. They exist in colonies and give us the appearance of a multicellular structure. These are some microscopic, under very high-powered microscope, view of prokaryotic cells. They actually appear in this manner with cilia and flagella. These are some bacterial structures. Now, types of plant cells. These are some images of plant cells. Here we can see these are onion cells. Onion peel cells, when observed under the microscope, it appears in that manner. These are some pollen grains and some parenchyma cells with the plastids, that is the chloroplast around them, that gives the green appearance. Now, different kinds of animal cells. So these are white blood cells, red blood cells, cheek cells, sperm cells, which has a long flagella. And just for your additional information, that sperm cell is the only cell in humans that has flagella. Then nerve cells, largest cell in the body of human body, in humans. Muscle cells, this is a paramecium and amoeba. These are eukaryotic cellular structures, but they have single-celled. Single cell makes up the organism, amoeba and paramecium. Whereas the muscle, nerve cells, sperm cells, as you know, as you're familiar, these are cells that you will find in humans as also in other animals. Now again, types of cells, prokaryotic and eukaryotic types of cells. Let us see how to differentiate these two types of cells. Prokaryotic cells will never have a membrane-bound nucleus. Now, cells, the structure of cells, they have cytoplasm, they have cell organelles, they have the nuclear material. Now, the nuclear material, that is the genetic material, in some cases it may be bounded by a membrane, in some cases it may not be bounded by a membrane. When it is bounded by a membrane, the genetic material is bounded by a membrane, such type of nucleus will be present only as a characteristic of eukaryotic cells. So, if you get a genetic material bounded by a membrane, by a covering, then we can clearly say that it is a type of eukaryotic cell. Whereas if it is not bounded by any membrane, it is a prokaryotic type of cell. DNA is small, held in a nucleoid. Here the DNA structure is very small. Okay, it is simply held within a structure called as nucleoid. In our further lessons we will learn more about nucleoids. Then in eukaryotes the DNA is linear and it is present inside the nucleus. Okay, it is present inside the nucleus, that is it has a covering. Now, prokaryotes, they will never have any membrane-bound cell organelles. They have a single cell organelle, that is the ribosome, which will not be bound by any covering. Eukaryotes, they have organelles which are always membrane-bound. They are covered by the organelles have a outer covering in eukaryotes. Prokaryotes, as already I talked, non-membrane bound ribosomes present only ribosomes as a cell organelle is present which is not membrane bound, and they float in the cytoplasm. Whereas in eukaryotes also ribosomes are there which are not membrane bound. Okay, this is an exception in eukaryotes. Otherwise all the organelles, they are membrane bound, they have a covering now except ribosome, but the ribosome will be present in cytoplasm like prokaryote. Other than cytoplasm, they will be present in mitochondria and chloroplast. These two are cell organelles which have a covering. So what inside a cell organelle, a second cell organelle, that is a ribosome, can also be present, can be there. Prokaryotes, example is bacteria, blue-green algae. These are examples, very common examples of prokaryotic cellular structure. And eukaryotes, the examples, you will get eukaryotic structures in plants and animals. So these are the two categories of cells that exist in nature, that exists around us. Prokaryotes will be found only in bacteria, different forms of bacteria, the archaebacteria, eubacteria. These are different types which we will be learning in our coming classes. And blue-green algae, which are also known nowadays, they are now called as cyanobacteria. Earlier, they were placed under plants, under algae, but seeing the prokaryotic nature, a totally different, they have been placed separately, and we call them as cyanobacteria now. Whereas eukaryotes, you will find in plants and animals. Animals which can be unicellular, which can be some multicellular. Likewise for plants also unicellular, like say Chlamydomonas. It is an unicellular plant. And higher plants, angiosperms, gymnosperms, flowering plants around you, all of them, they are multicellular eukaryotes. So here we have an image of prokaryotic cell and an image of eukaryotic cell. So here you can see this is the nuclear material. They do not have a proper covering outside. The pink portion is the cytoplasm with these dot-like structures which are representing the ribosomes. In case of eukaryotes, you have the nucleus which is with a covering, which is at a proper covering, and they have all different types of organelles. Ribosomes are there like in prokaryote. So these are the basic differences between prokaryotes and eukaryotes. Next lecture, we will be going to details of prokaryotic cellular structure. So keep following the lectures. The third in the series will be with prokaryotic cellular structure in details.